Good day, this is ΔΗΜΗΤΡΗΣ coming to you for Reason to Resist from Kalamata, Greece on May 4th, 2026. The video that you just saw was published by the Iranian Navy within the past 24 hours, and it reportedly shows the aftermath of an Iranian missile or drone strike on two ships, we were told, in the Strait of Hormuz. These ships, according to the Iranian Navy, attempted to pass through the strait without permission from the Iranian military. Now, I've not been able to determine any information about those ships, but there's a lot more to report upon as to what is going on in the Strait of Hormuz, and it does appear that we are at that moment when the parties are about to descend into a hot phase of this war for a variety of reasons, which I am going to share with you now. But before I get into it, please like and share this video if you find it to be informative. And if you're not already a subscriber of Reason to Resist, we warmly encourage you to become one. Please help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. And we just launched a merchandise website. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. By purchasing merchandise from Reason to Resist, you can help us to expand our on-the-ground reporting, something that we think is an invaluable aspect of the journalism that we do. So with that, let's get into it. This morning, U.S. Central Command claimed that two U.S.-flagged merchant ships managed over the protestations of the Iranian military to transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Here you can see a statement by U.S. Central Command that U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyers are currently operating in the Arabian Gulf. So they're not in the Strait, they're not in the Persian Gulf, they're in the Arabian Gulf. We already knew that they were operating there as part of this illegal blockade. But this time they're there to support something called Project Freedom, and I'm going to have a lot more to say about that yesterday. It was announced by Trump yesterday. Then CENTCOM goes on and says American forces are actively assisting efforts to restore transit for commercial shipping. As a first step, two U.S.-flagged merchant vessels have successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz and are safely headed on their journey. There is no evidence that I'm aware of produced by CENTCOM or any other arm of the U.S. government or military substantiating the claim that two U.S.-flagged merchant vessels just transited through the Strait of Hormuz unmolested. And in reply to this tweet, I asked them to provide evidence, to publish evidence. I doubt that I'll get a response. But in any event, given CENTCOM's record of dishonesty throughout this fight, and in fact, from the entire time that it has existed, we shouldn't take it at its word, especially in such a contentious matter as who controls the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, Iranian state media reported that the Iranian Navy had fired upon and struck a U.S. naval vessel that ignored Iranian warnings not to enter the strait. And here you can see a post today, not too long ago, by Press TV, the Iranian state broadcaster, saying that two missiles struck a U.S. Navy ship that ignored Iran's warnings. I don't believe that that is a photograph of the vessel that was struck, but I can't say that for sure. I think that's kind of a demonstrative photo, but it is possible that that is a photo of the vessel that was struck. At the same time, however, it's important to bear in mind that CENTCOM is vigorously denying all of this. They put out a fact check after this claim, stating that no U.S. Navy ships have been struck. U.S. forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports. Interestingly used the word struck. They didn't say that no U.S. Navy ships have been fired upon. And in any event, as I said a few minutes ago, whatever they may be saying, unless, particularly in times of war, when information warfare is at its height, we need to take all of these claims with a significant grain of salt unless they are backed up by independent and compelling evidence. At the end of the day, I have not been able to confirm whether Iran is telling the truth or the U.S. military is telling the truth about whether a U.S. naval vessel was struck. Now, whether or not Iran is telling the truth about striking a U.S. naval vessel I think that this is nonetheless a significant claim because it demonstrates quite clearly that Iran believes itself to be operating from a position of strength. Why do I say that? Because by claiming that the Iranian Navy struck a US naval vessel, and I'm sure that Iran is well aware of this, it is increasing pressure on Donald Trump to take military action in response. So as we all know, Trump fancies himself a winner. It's the defining characteristic of the Trump mystique. He wins at everything and by a historic margin. And any suggestion that the US Navy just took a blow and did not retaliate to it is going to increase his incentive to respond militarily. As I say, I think Iran understands this perfectly well. And the mere fact that they're making this claim, which is obviously going to come to the attention of a lot of Americans, I think demonstrates or is one piece of evidence about the degree to which they believe themselves to be operating from a position of strength, not only on the battlefield, but in the realm of information warfare as well. Now, one thing that we can confirm here at Reason to Resist is that within the past 24 hours, Iran has fired upon a vessel flagged by the United Arab Emirates. And here you see the claim by the X-account Iran military media, following the UAE's disregard for warnings from the Iranian Navy, Iran launched an attack on the ADNOC oil tanker with 2 drones in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, how do we know that this claim is accurate? Because the dictatorship of the United Arab Emirates complained about the attack. And here you can see a report in Reuters. The vessel, the oil tanker in question, which according to the UAE was empty, wasn't carrying any oil. It belonged to the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, or ADNOC, and it was struck or attacked with drones as it attempted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So there's no indication in the UAE's statement that it sought the permission of the Iranian Navy. So when it tried to go through the UAE, the Strait of Hormuz, without seeking permission, they must have understood that there was a high risk that that vessel was going to be attacked, and they did it anyways. Well, why would they do that? They might have done that because they accepted assurances from Donald Trump when he put out a statement yesterday about this new military initiative to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They might have relied upon those assurances. Again, this is what Trump has called, ironically, Project Freedom, but I'll come back to that in a minute. One thing I think that we should bear in mind in terms of the hostilities between the United Arab Emirates and Iran is that, it recently came to light that the Israelis rushed air defense equipment to the UAE. The UAE seemed to have no problem with that information becoming public, as far as I could tell, which really shows the extent to which the UAE is aligned with this diabolical entity called Israel, which is doing everything possible to destroy Iran and mass murdering its people. And not only that, but there were credible reports that the Emirati Air Force, using its Mirage jets, attacked an oil infrastructure facility during the hot phase of the war. And I've seen reports on Telegram resistance channels which say that or suggest that the Iranian military has come to the conclusion that, in fact, the UAE military was directly involved in attacking Iranian territory during the first hot phase of this war. And I'm going to show you some other recent developments which suggest that things are particularly heating up, getting quite hot between the UAE and Iran. Now, separately, the Iranian military published a recording of a warning which it says it issued within the past 24 hours or so to ships that were operating in or near the Strait of Hormuz. And this is what that recording had to say.
Day is right. This is Stefan Davis morning. This is Stefan Davis morning. Hormuz Strait has been blocked and passed through that with permission from Islamic Republic of Iran out and on through for any vessel approaches the Strait of Hormuz from longitude 056 degrees 00 minutes east in Persian Gulf and from latitude 25 degrees 40 minutes north in Oman Sea without permission from Islamic Republic of Iran will be strike and will be destroyed. Out.
Now, there are plenty of other reports of rising tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. These are two alerts that were just put out moments before I began recording this video by the New York Times. The first, 16 minutes before I started recording approximately, a major fire has broken out in an oil industry port in Fujairah, one of the UAE, the authorities there said. They said that the Fujairah oil industry zone, excuse me, the largest port and oil storage area in the Emirates, had been attacked by an Iranian drone. While the large Emirati cities are on the country's western coast facing the Persian Gulf, Fujairah is on the eastern coast facing the Gulf of Oman. And there were plenty of reports during the first hot phase of this war that industrial zone was struck and struck repeatedly. As I recall, it is a supplier to U.S. military forces based in the UAE. And it looks like we're back onto, if this report is accurate, there has been a resumption of attacks by the Iranian military on the Arab vassals of Washington in the region. And no surprise, if in fact this report is accurate, that Iran would start with the UAE, which is, at the end of the day, nothing more really than a Mossad operation masquerading as a sovereign country. The New York Times also reported, about 45 minutes before that a South Korean cargo ship caught fire on Monday after an explosion in the Strait of Hormuz. That would be today. This was according to the South Korean Foreign Ministry. Of course, South Korea, I think, would be deemed by Iran to be a hostile state, not only because it is closely allied with the United States, but also because there were reports that the United States removed air defense systems from South Korea and brought them into the theater of war to defend the genocidal Israeli entity and its own military forces, which were attacking Iran. So it would not at all be surprising if the Iranian government and military regarded South Korea as a hostile state. The New York Times reports that no casualties occurred. Well, this is actually coming from the ministries of both the UAE and the South Korea. And they said the government was working to determine the cause of the incident. The ship was carrying 24 crew members. I just want to point out here that we've now seen reports today, these are not the first by any means, of Iran using drones to attack vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. And this harkens back to something that I've said repeatedly. A lot of the focus in the discussion about the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has been on mines, sea mines. And Iran has plenty of those, of many different types and capabilities, but it's got so many other ways to damage uncooperative vessels. Drones, of course, are one of them, and it has those in abundance. They can be fired not only from the coast, but from points well inland because they have a range of hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. They have what they call midget-class diesel submarines that can operate in the shallow waters of the Persian Gulf. They have the fast attack boats, apparently hundreds of those. I'm going to show you some satellite imagery about those types of vessels operating in the Gulf this weekend. So there is no end of means by which, and that's not exhaustive, by the way, there's no end of means by which Iran can threaten ships operating in the Strait of Hormuz. And as I've said many times, it's so important to understand, my friends, Iran doesn't need to blow up every vessel that even thinks about entering the Strait of Hormuz to put an effective end to maritime traffic. All it has to do is occasionally attack one of these very slow, clumsy, combustible oil tankers, do some damage, and increase the risk of one of them being severely damaged or, heaven forbid, sunk, to the point where the shipping companies and their insurers simply will not want any part of that trade, because it's just too damn risky. That's all they got to do. They just have to significantly heighten the risk of damage to these very expensive and very vulnerable commercial tankers and cargo ships. That's all. And that's why I say over and over again, there is no military solution to Iran's decision to severely restrict traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The only way to get it open is to make sufficient concessions to the government of Iran, which here is a victim of aggression and has suffered, its people have suffered enormously as a result of this criminal war. Appropriate concessions have to be made to the government of Iran, and until then, the strait will remain effectively closed, and the global economic situation will deteriorate and deteriorate with increasing rapidity. Now, on top of all of that, there is flight tracking data showing that the US Air Force refueling aircraft are active above the Persian Gulf today. And this is from the Telegram resistance channel, Photros Resistance. They write that following escalating tensions and US saying the rules of engagement for US forces in the region being changed to strike immediate threats against ships that cross the strait, like IRGC fast boats or Iranian missile positions, multiple US Air Force refuelers are seen above the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, refueling US jets to enforce new US engagement rules. It remains yet to be seen if they will strike Iran's Navy if they stop a ship. So I'm not a military expert, as you'll all know, but I'm going to give you my read of this, what is going on here militarily. What's going on here militarily is that those attack boats that Iran has move very quickly. They come out fast, they do their job fast, and they return to their shelters fast. So in order for the US Air Force to have any prospect of striking them, it has to have aircraft in the air over the Strait of Hormuz, or not too far from the Strait of Hormuz, like, for example, over the Persian Gulf, the southern Persian Gulf, or over the Sea of Oman, at the time that the fast attack boats enter the Strait of Hormuz, because they'll only have a brief window of opportunity in which to strike them, these warplanes. If they're being launched from a base in Saudi Arabia, as soon as they are alerted to the fact that the fast attack boats have entered the Strait of Hormuz, by the time they actually take off and get to the Strait of Hormuz, the US Air Force warplanes, the fast attack boats will have disappeared. So the only way to have any prospect of hitting them, which would be difficult even if you had warplanes in the air 24/7, because of the speed with which they move and their maneuverability and the fact that they're not large, the only way to have any prospect of hitting them is to have warplanes in the air constantly. But if the warplanes are in the air constantly, then they are going to be subject, especially in the Strait of Hormuz, which is so close to the coastline of Iran, they are going to be vulnerable, those warplanes, to Iran's air defense systems. And as we have seen, Iran is capable of taking down the most advanced fighters that the US military has. So this is an extremely dangerous escalation, not just for Iran, but for the United States military that we are witnessing, folks. Now, while I'm on the subject of Iran's fast attack boats, the European Union's Copernicus Sentinel system has published a satellite image of a swarm of Iranian fast attack boats in the Strait of Hormuz on May 2nd. And here it is. You may be able to make out there small white dots with what appears to be a swell of water behind them. Those evidently are the fast attack boats. I can count 42 in that one image, if you don't include what may be additional boats, fast attack boats in the upper left-hand corner of this image. So that's just one swarm. So I think it's fair to say Iran is likely to have hundreds of these vessels and it would be quite a chore for the US military to take them out of action, especially because there are so many other threats to US military assets operating in the region where the fast attack boats are. There are drone threats, missile threats, air defense systems, mines for naval vessels that try to take on the fast attack boats, the midget-class diesel submarines of the Iranian Navy. This is a very, very difficult situation for the United States military to tackle. And at the end of the day, for the reasons I've already explained, I won't repeat them, the US military will not succeed in taking control of the Strait of Hormuz or wresting it from the Iranian military. That doesn't stop Donald Trump, however, from trying. And you may be wondering, well, why all of this sudden escalation in tensions in the Strait of Hormuz? Of course, it's Donald Trump's big mouth. Donald Trump put out a statement yesterday on Truth Social in which he announced this new military misadventure called Project Freedom. And he wrote as follows, or his surrogate, whoever it may be, maybe it's Sebastian Gorka, who knows who actually wrote this verbal diarrhea. But it says, countries from all over the world, almost all of which are not involved in the Middle Eastern dispute going on so visibly and violently for all to see, have asked the United States if we could help free up their ships, which are locked up in the Strait of Hormuz, on something which they have absolutely nothing to do with. It is Donald Trump who has forced them to suffer the consequences of something for which they have nothing to do. It is not Iran. This was a war initiated by Israel and the United States, not by Iran. But I digress. He goes on and says, these countries are merely neutral and innocent bystanders, exclamation mark, for the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States. We have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. Again, these are ships from areas of the world that are not in any way involved with that which is currently taking place in the Middle East. I've told my representatives to inform them that we will use best efforts, so he's not giving a guarantee, to get their ships and crews safely out of the strait. In all cases, they said they will not be returning until the area becomes safe for navigation and everything else. This process, Project Freedom, will begin Monday morning, Middle East time. So that would have been about 8 hours ago. I'm fully aware that my representatives are having very positive discussions with the country of Iran, and that these discussions could lead to something very positive for all. Perhaps you won't be surprised to know that hours before Donald Trump wrote this and published it, he said that he was extremely likely to reject Iran's latest 14-point peace proposal. And the explanation he gave is because the United States has not won decisively enough. And all of a sudden, now we're to believe that there are extraordinarily positive discussions going on. Then he says, this is a humanitarian gesture. Imagine that, Donald Trump, humanitarian. On behalf of the United States, Middle Eastern countries, but in particular the country of Iran. So he's doing a humanitarian gesture on the part of Iran. Well, apparently Iran disagrees, judging from their response to this. He says that many of these ships are running low on food. Well, they could be easily supplied with food by land. You could send out some, small boats to deliver provisions to them, I'm sure. And he says the crews, large-scale crews, have stayed on board, and it's difficult for them to do that in a healthy and sanitary manner. I think it would go a long way in showing goodwill on behalf of all those who have been fighting so strenuously over the last few months. If in any way this humanitarian process is interfered with, that interference will unfortunately have to be dealt with forcefully. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, I was being interviewed by Suleiman Ahmed on X late last night when he brought this post to my attention. I had not seen it previously. I had not read it. He quickly summarized it for me. And my immediate reaction when I heard about this was that it's a fraud. Because as someone who was in the Strait of Hormuz just a few weeks ago and saw the challenges with my own eyes and heard from people in the area, officials, about the many ways in which Iran can shut down the strait, I can assure you that any attempt by the US military, the Navy in particular, to send vessels into the Strait of Hormuz would amount to a suicide mission. And if you don't want to take my word for it, just ask yourselves why we are now into the month of May. They launched this war of aggression on February 28th. Why haven't they attempted to send vessels into the Strait of Hormuz before to seize control of it and to provide safe passage to these other vessels? And why did the Europeans refuse, despite all of the verbal abuse they took from Donald Trump, to send their naval vessels to try to wrest control of the Strait of Hormuz from the Iranian military? Because all of them understood perfectly well that it was a suicide mission. So it was for that reason, when Suleiman told me this, and also the fact that Donald Trump has absolutely no credibility, that I expressed serious doubts that the US Navy was actually going to attempt something so harebrained as escorting vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. And my exact words were, "I'll believe it when I see it." If you want to, watch my response, you can do that on Suleiman Ahmed's channel. But in any case, we now have, as a result of some reporting today by the US corporate media, confirmation, I would argue, of exactly what I said last night, that this is a fraud and that the US military is not really going to try to escort vessels, civilian vessels, oil tankers and cargo ships through the Strait of Hormuz without the consent of Iran. And here's one of the US corporate media outlets which shed light on what's really going on here. This is the ever reliable mouthpiece of the US political elite, Axios, and Barak Ravid in particular is the author of this piece. He seems to be the go-to propagandist for the Trump regime, a former soldier in the Israeli military, I might add. And he says, the title you can see there, US Navy will guide ships out of Strait of Hormuz from Monday. And the article begins with recitation of the fact that Trump said the US Navy will start guiding ships from foreign countries through the Strait of Hormuz Monday, and warned that if Iran tries to disrupt the process, the American military will use force. And then you read further on and you learn this: the new Hormuz Strait Initiative will not necessarily include US Navy ships escorting commercial vessels, according to two American officials. Yes, the ever-present anonymous American officials. One of them said the US Navy ships will be in the vicinity in case they need to prevent Iran's military from attacking commercial ships moving through the strait. The official said the US Navy is going to provide commercial ships with information on the best maritime lanes in the strait, especially when it comes to using lanes that were not mined by the Iranian military. Now, in my view, for you to accept the US encouragement to move through the strait unescorted by warships and relying upon verbal guidance or data they've provided to you, you'd have to be one hell of a chump, a sucker, and a damned fool. Because whatever guidance they may give you, these large, slow-moving, highly combustible oil tankers are going to be easy pickings for the Iranian military. There's no guidance that the US military can give to these ships that would enable them to evade drone strikes, missile strikes, submarine strikes, fast attack boats. It's not just the mines. So even if the Americans could, give them guidance that allows them to avoid the mines, and Iran can move its mines around. It's not like those mines are always going to be in one place. But let's assume that this guidance would effectively nullify the threat provided by mines. What about the drones? I just showed you that today a vessel from the UAE was attacked with drones. The UAE admitted it. So there's absolutely no way that the US Navy can provide guidance which would protect these people. And so if they would be going in there, they would be going in there effectively on a suicide mission, these commercial vessels. I don't think the US military is going to find many maritime transportation companies that are interested in taking on its offer of guidance. And if they do, they're going to find out the hard way how many ways Iran has to damage and even sink ships that try to go through the Strait of Hormuz without its consent. So again, this is a fraud. This is not something, it's not going to involve naval escorts. The United States military is not going to put, its destroyers at risk by sending them back and forth through the Strait of Hormuz with these commercial vessels. I think what may well be going on here is that Trump is trying to bait the Iranians into attacking these commercial ships, and then he can use that as an excuse to resume the hot war against Iran, which is explicitly what he threatened to do in his post yesterday. He said if they attack these ships, which they've been doing consistently since the beginning of the war, any ship that tries to go through without their consent is oftentimes attacked, and is certainly at great risk of attack. This is not new. What Trump is doing is trying to fashion a narrative which makes it look like Iran restarted the war, when in fact it is the United States that is restarting the war. I think that's what's going on here. And of course, the fact that Trump issued this statement on Sunday afternoon, a few hours before, less than 24 hours before markets reopened on Monday morning, oil markets, that too, I think, is significant. This was a way, as I mentioned, his post not only talked about, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, but also about how swimmingly the negotiations were going between the United States and Iran. So this statement, I think, this Truth Social post yesterday announcing Project Freedom had a dual purpose. The one was to continue the manipulation of the oil markets and the suppression of the increases in the price of oil. And the second was to create a narrative which would, in Donald Trump's mind, enable him to say that it was Iran which provoked a resumption of the war. Now, how are oil markets reacting? Well, as reported by the New York Times earlier today, oil prices jumped and stocks turned lower in volatile trading as investors reacted to the continued uncertainty over the near total shutdown of ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The increase was in the range of, I believe it went up to Brent crude, about $111 a barrel. So it is way above where it was before the war began. It's almost doubled at that rate. And of course, I understand these are the futures, the price of oil futures, but in the spot market, a barrel of oil is going for a hell of a lot more money than this. If you need oil now and are not entering into a contract to have it delivered to you months down the road, you're going to pay a much higher price than these prices would suggest. And over time, I believe you're going to see a convergence of these two prices, the prices in the spot market and the prices in the futures market. And because you can't, as others have said, you can't print oil. Either it's out there or it isn't. And sooner or later, reality is that you're going to have to confront a massive shortage in oil and gas. And that's precisely what is happening around the world now. I want to spend a moment talking about some economic news, which is showing the overall trend of things. These are just bits and pieces, but they're consistent with the overall picture, which is a global economy that is increasingly in crisis. Let's begin with the genocidal entity itself, shall we? This is a report from the Israeli media outlet Ynet, published recently, and it shows that data from Israel's employment service revealed a sharp deterioration in the labor market in March as the number of job seekers climbed to around 396,000, more than 2.5 times higher than the previous month. So in the month before the genocidal entity, along with Trump, launched this war, the number of job seekers was a fraction of what happened in the month of March. Now, there may have been some recovery in the job market in April, but it looks like whatever recovery there may have been is going to be extremely short-lived, because if the hot phase of the war has not resumed, it almost certainly is about to resume. Some other economic news. Air India announced yesterday it's cutting nearly 100 flights after Iran war sends fuel prices soaring. And a few days ago, the corporate media reported that Lufthansa, the German carrier, cut 20,000 flights as the Iran war caused jet fuel shortage. Now, all of this is bad political news for Donald Trump, of course. And let me tell you just how bad the situation is for the Donald. This is a report in The Guardian yesterday. Trump's disapproval rating hits record high. A new poll shows his disapproval rating rose to 62%, the worst of his 2 terms in office amid economic issues. And Americans, according to this poll, disapprove of Trump's handling of the Iran war by 66 to 32%, while a staggering 76% disapprove and only 23% approve of his handling of the cost of living. And remember, this was his big claim to, fame in the presidential campaign. He was always going on and on about the cost of living under Biden and how the Democrats had been so bad for ordinary working people in the United States because of the increase in the cost of living. And now he's going to take it to levels that'll make inflation under Biden seem like a walk in the park. That's where we're heading currently. And I think increasingly the American people understand this. It's only going to get worse for Donald Trump from here. And we're only a few months away from the midterm elections, folks. If Donald and the Republicans get wiped out in those elections, it's say hello to impeachment time for Donald Trump. Now, I want to talk lastly about the impacts of this disastrous war on Greece. And specifically, these numbers relating to unusual and severe actions taken by international air carriers to reduce their traffic in the months ahead. The Greek economy is critically dependent upon tourism. Tourism accounts for a whopping 34% of Greece's annual GDP. So why, one might ask, is the Mitsotakis government, the conservative government, supporting Israel and the US in this criminal war of aggression? This war is going to destroy Greece's already fragile and battered economy, battered in particular by 16 years plus of severe austerity imposed upon Greece by Europe's political elite and by the IMF. It's not just a disastrous tourist season that now appears to be inevitable in Greece, and we're just entering now the beginning of the tourist season, but it's also going to be the soaring cost of fuel and gas and food, amongst many other things. And so it's no wonder that the incomparable UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese had some choice words for the Greek government when she was in Athens yesterday promoting her new book. That book, by the way, is called When the World Sleeps, Stories, Words, and Wounds of Palestine. And at the event, Ms. Albanese said that Israel chose Greece to advance its regional ambitions. Not that Greece chose Israel. Israel chose Greece. And she argued that in some circles in Greece, the pundits and experts and politicos have a wrong perception of their alliance with Israel. This is something I've been arguing for months, that there is a certain element within Greek society, but particularly in the political elite, who think that the alliance with Israel protects Greece, when in fact the precise opposite is true, and obviously so. Its alliance with Israel actually does tremendous damage to Greece and places Greece at risk. And she went on and said, you think that you have chosen Israel in order to secure peace from your eternal enemy? And I think she's almost certainly referring there to Turkey. I don't think so, she said. Israel has picked you, Israel has chosen you, and is going to exploit your fears and your insecurity, because this is what Israel does to advance its regional hegemony. Albanese reminded her audience, according to The Guardian, that the states have obligations not to be complicit in Israel's crimes. Quote, apart from the moral injury, I mean, as a lawyer, I can tell you this is unlawful and there should be accountability. So those who continue to authorize transfers of weapons or goods from or Israel into Greece or from Greece to Israel should be held accountable, she said. That is a message that I've had for the Greek people repeatedly on this program. So Kyriakos Mitsotakis is not only betraying international law, he has betrayed and is betraying his own people. By aligning Greece with Israel, Mitsotakis is heightening tensions with Turkey. Israel's leaders, these people who stand shoulder to shoulder with Mitsotakis at every opportunity, are openly calling Turkey their enemy and suggesting that Turkey is next. I recently played a video of Naftali Bennett, who may well be the next prime minister of Israel, describing Turkey as the new Iran. You don't think that causes alarm in Ankara when they see what Israel and the United States are doing to Iran, and this man who served as Israel's prime minister in the past and aspires to be the prime minister again is saying that Turkey is the new Iran? So our alliance with Israel is not relaxing tensions with Turkey. It is heightening them, arguably to an unprecedented degree. Quite apart from that, and again, as I've covered on this program, the Suda Bay Naval Base in Crete, and quite possibly other naval bases used by the US military in Greece, are being used to funnel military material to West Asia during this time of criminal war of aggression against Iran, which gives Iran an incentive to strike those military bases and any military bases on Greek soil that are being used to facilitate the criminal war of aggression. And Iran has the capability to strike Greece. It has ballistic missiles, which Greece's air defenses could never dream of taking down, that will, especially the hypersonic missiles in its arsenal, that would reach Greece if Iran chose to go down that road. And thankfully, it has not done so up until this point in time. But Mr. Mitsotakis is giving the Iranian military an incentive to regard Greece as both an enemy and as a target. And quite apart from all of that, Mr. Mitsotakis is destroying the standing of Greece in the international community by aligning himself with these baby-murdering psychopaths in every imaginable way, I might add. So I say that Kyriakos Mitsotakis is a traitor to his own people. He should be hauled before a domestic court and tried for high treason in accordance with due process of law, of course. And if found guilty, and I believe that he should be found guilty, he should pay the maximum penalty provided for under Greek law for the commission of high treason. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Kalamata, Greece on May 4th, 2026.